Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Business Spotlight. Joining me today is Rachel Thexton, who is principal of Thexton Public Relations. Thanks for joining us today, Rachel.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you've been in the industry, the public relations and / communications industry for many years. I'm just wondering, like right now, what does a typical day, the average day look like in the world of PR in 2022?
Yes, well, it's changing. It seems almost daily. We've gone through so many changes with the rise of digital.
Mhm.
But surprisingly, a lot of my clients and I agree with them, still see huge value in traditional news, meaning your Calgary Herald, your Vancouver Suns, your Toronto Star, Globe and Mail. They love to see themselves in the newspaper. So my day looks like kind of, checking in with clients. First thing I do, back it up. First thing I do is I monitor the news. I see
Yeah.
what's happening in the world. What's today look like? How can my clients fit in if they can? What's the priority for the day? And then it's really about kind of working one-on-one with my clients on what they have on the go, and executing plans that we've created, and kind of just really doing a lot of notes and calls. I try to call media less. I find, phone calls are just not as welcome. Media are so overworked, I find, and so busy. So I try to stick to the emails, and so a lot of emails to media, a lot of writing of materials, incorporating digital strategy, so influencers and social and things like that. And yeah, it's a large variety of communication depending on what the day brings.
Now, you deal a lot in the real estate industry itself as one of the areas of expertise that you have. What, first of all, the why behind that? Why have you centered around real estate as a key part of your clientele, and what kind of supports do you offer the industry?
Yeah, so I kind of fell into it, to be honest. It wasn't planned. I think it is great to have a niche space if you're a PR professional, because you really get to know your sector and your industry very, very well, and that can help you in the longevity of your career, especially as an independent like I am. But I fell into it. My PR partner specialized in it, and she brought me into her business and then retired. I took over and just really got to know how to execute communications and PR around the industry. And
Mhm.
so continued to specialize. And there are only a few of us in the market here in Western Canada. So we are the ones that developers, whether it be, or sometimes realtors, organizations, associations come to when they need support. And to answer your question about what kind of support the real estate industry needs, it's everything from publicity and maybe launching a project to brand, corporate communications, and really building a brand. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's trickier work, like crisis communications or working on a reputation issue. Maybe someone's not happy with an experience they've had, and we have to see what's happening there and how that's going to potentially affect reputation, and how we can fix it, and how
Mhm.
they can fix the issue, and how I can kind of manage the reputation part of things. So some crisis work and reputation work mixed in there too.
Now, when we're talking about real estate, Rachel, are we dealing with both commercial and residential side of things that you deal with?
I do. I do all real estate, but I do find that residential, I'm in Vancouver, as you know, residential tends to be what comes to my door the most. So most of my clients are building primarily in residential, and so they're looking for support in that space. But they're also looking for support in building their brand, right? So there's a lot of developers in Western Canada. And so buyers really want to know the developer. They want to know and trust and, see their history, know their story, know they're going to have a good experience.
Mhm. So, tell me, how you would respond to somebody who say has a real estate company, and he or she is thinking about doing some public relations, but not 100% sure if this is, a right fit for the company. What would you tell them about why they should consider PR? And do you think many of them don't really understand the true value of it?
I think that's still quite common. I think there's a misunderstanding or a lack of knowledge around what it is. And so not knowing that, therefore the value of it, then you don't have the value.
Yeah.
So I think there, and that, I blame the industry, our industry as PR professionals for part of that too. We have to do a better job educating people on what we do and why it's so valuable. Because once people understand it and they have the experience in doing it and they see the difference it makes for their business, they get it right away, right? Once they have that experience.
You think a lot of, I just wondering, you think a lot of them come at it late, is when, you did mention like a crisis or something like that, where, it's something, it should be part of their overall strategy, like from the beginning before you get to a crisis. Yeah.
Exactly. That's a great point. And another thing that's common is wanting to do PR right before they're going to launch a project, right?
Yeah.
So, and that, I do some of those project pieces, but that's tricky because, we haven't had an opportunity to build the brand, to build rapport and relationships for the leadership with media and influencers and bloggers and others. So it's best to really get in there and build your corporate brand on the PR side. And then when a project launch comes, you're already halfway there. You've got those relationships, you get it, right? So
Okay.
yeah.
I'm curious because you brought up the word bloggers, and I'm curious about how people may overlook that aspect of things. So, everybody always goes to the traditional media, right? And your newspapers, your Vancouver Sun, your Calgary Herald, your CTV News, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But not understanding fully the impact that bloggers or social media influencers have now out there in terms of public relations. Can you talk a little bit about that and the growing importance of that area?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I just finished a financial project, and even in that space, there are so many influencers and bloggers that focus on personal finance.
Yeah.
It's not just beauty and shopping and lifestyle and mummies, and it's everything from A to Z. So no matter what industry you're in, there's likely going to be quite a strong digital presence that you need to be involved in. Like, you need to be a part of that dialogue. So within your market and nationally, there are some amazing, I mean, Canada just has such a wealth of professional, and when I say professional, I mean they're very, very authentic, friendly, they do their job well, bloggers. And by that, it's, someone who is, not trained as a journalist and doesn't claim to be a journalist, but, does like to record and write about stories they're seeing and experiences they're having, tracking it on their social media and sharing it. And it can be anything from, a new condo they've purchased to a financial product they're using to, a trip they've gone on with an airline, So it's important to keep the digital space in mind. And one tip that is very important is don't let the numbers fool you. So, big numbers are great, and sometimes they are authentic and fantastic, but it's quality over quantity always, right? So, sometimes those big numbers, part of that, sometimes even up to half of them, are people that aren't even going to be, in your customer base, or anyone that you would want to be or needing to be engaging with.
Yeah.
So really looking at the quality of who those bloggers and influencers are talking to and who their communities are.
All right, super. What's the favorite part for you of working in this industry and public relations field?
Okay, two quick things. Well, first of all, seeing a story. I mean, seeing a story in print or show up online in a media outlet, or wherever it may be after working, the work that goes into it is a huge satisfaction because there's so much work that goes into it behind the scenes, right? Media don't just pick up stories because you tell them, here's a story for you, right? It doesn't work that way. You have to really, be up with the news and what's happening, be timely. Second thing that I love about it is I love the work that I do for nonprofit organizations. It's just so satisfying. I mean, the nonprofits that I work with do such amazing work. Even the corporate clients and real estate clients, the philanthropic work that they do. I love pitching those stories because they're they're feel-good stories. And, we have a lot of negativity in the news sometimes, and being able to put some positive out into the space, I really enjoy.
Okay, super. Now, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and how did you get involved in public relations, and
Yeah.
the why behind it?
Yeah, so I studied journalism
Aha.
at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. And I had planned to be a journalist, potentially news, potentially sports. I wasn't sure. And I found out as I was going through my studies that I was making sources seem different or better, or kind of changing their image to benefit them, right? I had kind of empathy for their experiences. And that really isn't journalism, right? Journalism is the facts as they are, balanced and presented for the reader to take and, make their call. So I thought, I think PR is probably a better place for me because I can still be involved in news and media, which I love, storytelling, which I love, but I can also be involved in that, really taking a story and really emphasizing, the positive in everything that a company is doing.
Yeah.
And that an individual does as a leader or as a professional.
Oh, okay, super.
Yeah.
So you mentioned storytelling a couple of times. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the importance of storytelling these days when it comes to marketing. And I think there's a famous quote out there that storytelling is the new marketing.
Yeah, you know what? I have a tab on my website called, I think it's called My Stories, and I really have to pursue it more. I started it and I haven't had time to do as much as I've wanted to with it. And what I want to do with it is interview people who would usually not be profiled and have their story told. So someone living on the downtown east side in Vancouver, what's their experience been like? How did their life start and then progress to get them to where they are? Or anyone else whose story would never usually be in the news. And so I think storytelling is a huge part of communications and marketing, and I think we really need to think about the audience and the fact that when they are watching a program or reading a blog or even on social media, it's emotional to them too. It becomes kind of an emotional pull as well. So that storytelling piece of it is important in almost everything that you pitch, because it's something that the reader, the viewer, the listener really appeals to them, that storytelling element of things. So I think it's important to keep it in mind versus just here's the facts, there you go.
Yeah, exactly right. So how can people get a hold of you, Rachel, if they're interested in learning more about what you do, or potentially hiring you as a client, as one of their clients?
Well, they can go to my website and all of my information is there. I'm Rachel at thextonpr.com. And yes, I'm always happy to hear from people, have conversations, network, and meet new people. So on social media, through the website, email, would love to hear from you. And yeah, it was just a pleasure chatting with you, Mario. It's always been a pleasure working with you as a journalist, and pleasure chatting with you today.
Well, thank you very much. And just one final thing, as we all know, in this day and age, especially the way technology and innovation has accelerated how we do business. There really are no borders and there are boundaries, right? So you literally could have a client from Costa Rica, right? Yeah.
Or I could be working in Costa Rica, maybe.
That's true. We all could be, and so that's the joy of this day and age. And I found for myself as well is that I write for people everywhere, and I do things for people like in Montreal, Toronto, you name it. And So I think from a business perspective, that's something that everybody needs to keep in mind, that if you're in Montreal, you can call Rachel. She can handle your stuff as easily as you could if they were in Vancouver, right?
Yes, I love that virtual. We were just saying it's great. We've known each other for years, and now we see each other face to face and have a conversation. So that's a great one of the silver linings of the isolation that we've had.
Yeah, super. Well, thanks a lot, Rachel, for joining us today.
Thank you, Mario. Thanks for having me.
All right, that was Rachel Thexton, who is principal of Thexton Public Relations. I'm Mario Toneguzzi with Business Spotlight. Thanks for joining us today.